Hey, what's going on guys, Tanmay, and in this video tutorial of JavaScript, we're going to be taking a look at one of the most important concepts in JS or JavaScript, that is functions. So if you're coming from any other programming language like C++ or Java, then functions over here, the concept is pretty much the same, however the syntax is a little bit different. But if you are very new to programming and this is your first programming language, then in very simple terms, functions are basically block of code which is being given a particular name so that we can reuse that block of code again and again in our entire program. So you can see there is a little bit of theory already. Functions are one of the fundamental building blocks in JavaScript. A function is a set of statements that performs a particular task or calculates a value. A JavaScript function is a block of code designed to perform a particular task, and a function is executed when something invokes it. So you can find more theory in the video description. I will link an article wherein you can see everything on functions, basically in the theoretical perspective, and also the code that we type in today. But before we actually get into technicality, let me just give you a very basic example. So let's say you want to perform addition of two numbers in your program, okay? So performing addition, what you do is you create two variables where a and you assign 5. You create one more variable where b equals to 6. Then you create another variable where total, you say a plus b. And let's say now you want to print this, so you say document dot write. And this is what you do, right? So if I change the value over here, you can see the addition also changes. So this is how you perform addition at a very basic level. Now let's say in your program, the requirement is that you have to perform this same addition 5 times. So if you didn't have functions, what you would do is you would just copy this code and probably paste it 5 more times, right? So this would definitely increase your line of code, and it doesn't make sense to copy paste the same code over and over again if it's going to be doing the same thing. So this is where functions come into picture, and basically what it does is, what you can do is you can create a separate function and give it a particular name. Let's say add two numbers, and inside that function you can add these 3 lines or these 3 statements, and then you can just use that one single function name over and over again to call these 3 lines. So you save 3 lines of code. Now this might not sound relevant enough, but in real world scenarios, when you're writing big programs, there are a lot of repetitive tasks which are having hundreds of lines of code. So you cannot copy paste hundreds of lines of code in your program over and over again. So instead of that, you create functions. Okay, so with this little bit of knowledge on functions, let's try to see what we have in question number 1. So you can see we have to write a function to add two numbers and print the result. So this is what we did over here, but we have to do it using functions. So I'm just gonna cut this out. Now the syntax of functions in JavaScript goes as follows. You just type in the keyword function. That's it. So there is no return type required over here because we know JavaScript is weakly typed. So we can dynamically change the type of functions, and functions are already overloaded in nature. And I don't want to get into a lot of details of function overloading and all as of now. But for now, just type in the keyword functions and then you give a name of your function. So I'm going to say add two numbers, and then opening and closing round brackets, which denotes that it is a function, and opening and closing curly braces, which is the body of the function. So there is a naming convention being followed. You don't have to follow it, but generally what happens is the first word in the function name starts with a lowercase. Then you can have numbers or you don't have numbers, that's your call. But the second word usually starts with the uppercase, okay? Or you can also have an underscore in between. You cannot have numbers as starting for the function name. So similar to the naming conventions for variables, that same rules apply over here. Okay, so this is the basic structure of our function, okay? You just write in function, and then this is our function name, opening and closing round brackets. And now inside this, what we'll do is we'll just cut this code and paste it over here. Also, we'll just cut this code and paste it over here as well. Okay, so we have created our function. However, you can see in the output, we cannot see anything because we still have to call the function. Okay, so this is just the function declaration and definition wherein we've defined our function, we've named our function, and we've told that this is what it is gonna do. But in the entire script tag, we still haven't called this function. So there is a concept of function call. So if I just write down add number and opening and closing round brackets and hit a semicolon, immediately you can see that we are getting the output that the total is 8. So what we did over here is we called the function. So this is a function call. So the program knows that okay, so there is a function which looks like this, and it goes and checks this function and calls it, and all these values are executed. So now a function can also have parameters. So what do I mean by parameters? So now here you can see that we've hard coded these values 5 and 3. But what if you want to pass these values in the function? So you can do that also. So you can say a comma b. So these are basically the parameters, and you don't even have to give the data type because JavaScript is loosely or weakly typed. So here what I'm going to do is I'm going to say total is equal to a plus b. And right now you can see in the output we are not getting anything because over here we have not passed anything. So since you can see that now our function is a little bit different because it is expecting 2 parameters over here, I'm going to pass 2 parameters 3, 4. So immediately you can see we got the output, the total is 7. Now we can also pass strings over here. So if I say Tanmay space, and over here if I say Sakpal, you can see the total is Tanmay space Sakpal, which means that it just concatenated the 2 strings. So depending upon what data type you pass in over here, our function is automatically adapting or adjusting to the data types, because as I mentioned, JavaScript is loosely typed. So the data type of the variables is dynamically taken and it can change over the course of time. So these were parameter passing in the function. So we passed in Tanmay as a value and Sakpal as b value. So inside the function, a is holding Tanmay and b is holding Sakpal, and it just took an addition, that is concatenation, stored it in the local total variable and just printed it out. Now lastly, what I want to talk about is return type in functions. So a function can also return a value. Okay, right now you can see that our function is doing the printing work. So let's say this statement is over here, and the function here is going to just perform the total or perform the addition and return this variable outside. So what this return statement does is, so whenever you call your function, you can see we are calling our function over here add number. So we are passing 2 parameters, Tanmay and Sakpal. So these parameters go in as a and b. We get the total, that is we are getting the concatenation of Tanmay and Sakpal, and then we are getting a return value, right? So when this return statement comes in the function, this total is actually given out of this function. So there has to be a particular variable to hold this value which is returned from this function. So I'm going to say where output equals to, and on the RHS I'm calling this function. So you can see we have equal to in between. On the LHS we have a variable, on the RHS, that is right hand side, we are calling the function. And the reason why we kept it on the RHS is because now our function is returning a value, and when it returns a value, the assignment will happen from right to left. So whatever the function is returning is being assigned into this variable. And right now it is returning Tanmay Sakpal, so that's why it is being stored in the output variable, and that is what I'm printing over here in the document.write function. Similarly, if I just pass in numbers, you can see the total is 6. So 6 is being stored and it is returned using this return statement. So when it is returned, it is stored in this output variable outside the function, and then we just print it. Okay, so this was a very quick program and demonstration of functions in JavaScript. Of course, we'll go a lot more in detail on functions as we move ahead in the series. So this was just a very introductory video on functions. Of course, functions is a very detailed topic, and we'll get into a lot of more details on functions. For example, what are global variables, what are local variables, when we use functions, when we shouldn't use functions, and whatnot. So we'll discuss a lot on functions as we move ahead in this series. This was just a quick demonstration on functions. So that's it for this video, guys. I hope you like this video. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Let me know in the comments how this video was. Do share it with your friends as well. And if you haven't yet subscribed, make sure you subscribe on this channel so that you get notified whenever I upload a new video. So thanks for watching. See you guys in the next video. Peace.